All right, so gold is heading over 3,000 an ounce, silver is 100 plus, and those are speed bumps on the way to wherever they're going, folks. And that I firmly believe. I know some people are kind of going, oh, are you kidding me? And you hear it all the time. There are a few people out there that are, really panning gold and saying you got to sell. It has been, it always will be the insurance protection that helps people move and protect their assets when fiat currencies die. History, every single time in history, this has been one of the go-tos. It can really be any hard asset. It can be land, it can be oil, it can be commodities, wheat, corn, sugar, whatever. And what I try and do when I'm talking to people about looking and viewing what their investments are and what their provision is and what their the wealth that God's given them and how to steward it through that, you have to stop. You have to begin today to stop training yourselves, or to begin training yourselves to think of your provision in terms of how many ounces do I have? How many bushels do I have? How many barrels do I have? How many acres do I have? Because they will get measured against this dying currency like this. Because the volatility is going to go crazy as all this hot money sloshes around the globe and goes from one sector to the other. And that's all it is right now, is they're front-running these various sectors and countries, the banking system is, and then they get out in front of it and they buy it up, and then they chase all of our money over there, and then they sell while we're buying. And it's a crazy thing. I won't get too far down that rabbit trail, but forget all that. Think 20 years from now. Think 15 years from now, even 10 years from now. What assets will you have that are going to be real and tangible, that will have value to other people around you, that are not measured in paper? And that means paper dollars and paper stocks of a lot of companies. I mean, you can have equities maybe in companies who produce tangible goods like commodities and those kinds of things. So consider that. I have to say this disclaimer. I am not an investment advisor. So what I just gave you there is my opinion. Disclaimer. But look into it and really look through history about what has taken wealth, preserved it as we've gone through this type of crisis that we're looking at that's right ahead of us, okay? That's how you protect yourself from these kinds of things. Be fully convinced in your own mind before you do something, and then please do it. All right, mortgage rates, huge thing. And one of the primary reasons that QE2 was put in place was to keep mortgage rates down. Okay, Bernanke's saying, well, we've got to have a recovery in the housing market before the broader economy recovers. I think he actually made that statement about a year ago. He's not saying that anymore because housing has gone into a double dip officially already. Prices now have declined to where they're below the point that they were at their lowest point in 2009. Okay, housing's in a double dip because the genesis, because the ground zero for this whole thing was the mortgage market and the housing market. That's hugely significant because it's going to lead us again down the next bump, the next downturn. And the biggest problem is that because, we as all Americans, we own our homes. Well, kind of. Most of us have mortgages on our homes, and a lot of folks are upside down right now, and they're waiting for that day when it gets, it gets in the black again, and they're not underwater. I'm sorry to say, if you're in that situation, it's not going to happen for a very long time. Now, I shouldn't say that. Let me back off of that statement. It's not going to happen for a while. If we get into hyperinflation, it'll happen. But the environment that it'll be in will not be a pretty one. Okay? So that's what he's trying to fight with all this QE stuff. We're going to print. And how many of you know what QE is? Quantitative easing. Okay? I don't want to assume that. Let me take a minute and explain that mechanism. Because again, it's kind of important. These are terms you're going to hear out there, and so you'll know when it's getting closer. QE5, whoop, got to be real close. Or 6, or whatever it is. The Fed has a couple of different ways that they can administer monetary policy, which is a really nice sounding phrase for help the economy do what they want it to do. Okay, they can set a certain interest rate, and they can control the quantity of money that's in the economy. Those are really the two mechanisms that they have to be able to influence the economy. Well, generally what they'll do if the economy starts to turn down is they will lower interest rates, because it makes this debt-backed monetary system that we're in, it makes all this debt cheaper. And cheap debt is good, right? Woo! 0% financing or 2% or whatever. Now I can go out and go into hock and this is great. I don't have all this interest. Anyway, that stimulates the economy. And for a while that works, okay? Until too much debt gets in the system and it gets saturated and people are saying, no more. I can't take on anymore. Thank you very much for that, 0.5% rate, but I just can't do it anymore. The other thing they have to do then, and that's on kind of what's called the short end, short-term money, short-term borrowing, longer-term borrowing is set by U.S. Treasuries, the 10 and 20-year Treasury note. They really don't have a lot of control traditionally over what's called the long end of the bond curve, which is the longer-term borrowing. That's really market-driven until we get in really bad trouble. And then what they do is they print up all this money. And they say, well, nobody else is buying these treasuries to bring the interest rates down, so we'll do that. So they literally create money. This is the Federal Reserve, creates money. Treasuries are issued on the long end of the curve, and since there's no other buyers, which a strong, healthy market means what? Lower prices. The Fed becomes the buyer, and they go out and buy. And it holds long interest rates down, so it holds mortgage rates down. That has been the primary reason that this quantitative, and they call that quantitative easing, by the way. It's just a fancy name for monetizing the debt, which is printing money to pay these treasury bills that were just issued by the government. It's stupid. It's crazy. It's an insane system. But somehow they think issuing more debt at really cheap rates is going to save us. And pretty soon all of us are going to catch on and go, oh, silly us, why haven't we been doing that? And run out and start doing it again. But it's not working, okay? So they had quantitative easing too. They're looking at the economy right now. The economic statistics are rolling over again. And in the face of that, they're saying, okay, we're going to have to buy more of them, because we know in the face of this deteriorating economy and with the money supply that's already out there, there's not going to be demand for them, thus interest rates are going to rise. We can't have rising interest rates when we've got all this debt out there, otherwise servicing the debt is going to take way too much effort and going to crash the economy. So it's this vicious circle they're in. It is a vicious circle. It is not going to end well. It can't. We're at the end of this. It's called a liquidity trap, a debt trap. We're at the end of it. The market's saturated. Interest rates are as low as they can go. If they go higher, then servicing the debt, especially the 14-point-some trillion of on-the-books debt, not to mention the 100 trillion that's off the books, but 14 trillion on-the-books debt that we have to pay for the government, we just couldn't pay for it if interest rates went up. We couldn't do it. So they have to print, buy, hold rates down. How's this going to end? Please, ain't going to happen. So that's quantitative easing, okay? What happens is eventually, okay, all that to say, eventually, when you see mortgage interest rates rising above 7% in spite of this, what that tells you is that even the Federal Reserve is getting overwhelmed in its ability to print and buy these bonds. And they're getting dumped on the market en masse by China, Japan, and all the other creditors that we are a debt slave to as a nation. So, 7% mortgage rates, maybe even 6. Right now they're like 4.5, maybe 5. Even 6 is going to be a warning sign that something's not right, because remember, the whole reason they started this money printing and quantitative easing was to keep mortgage rates down. If they can't do it, they are losing control. So 6, moving on to 7, we're getting there. Okay, they're losing control of the system. Get ready. Be watching the news every single day for some of these other things. Stock market drop 10 to 15% within a week or two, and I'm not going to say what level that's going to be from. Because of all this stimulus they're doing now, you may see the market rise to the Dow go to 16, 17, 18,000. And they'll be standing there going, happy days are here again, and it's just baloney. All of the reason it's going up is because of all this liquidity they're throwing out there. Or it could happen from a sell-off down to 7,000. We may see a sell-off now that lasts 6 months and brings the thing down from, what is it, about 13,000 now? Bring it down to, let's say, 9,000. Oh, we've had a 20% correction, time for that bull to start running again. And then it drops another 15 to 20% from there within another week or two. Boom, there's your signal that there's some bad stuff right here, right now. Get your hands on your bug-out bag, okay? And the last one is the U.S. dollar index. Is anybody familiar with that? What that is? I would encourage you to get familiar with it. It's if you have any kind of a program where you can type a stock symbol in to see its value, this is USDX. USDX. And a lot of times you have to put a dollar in front of them, like a $ USDX. Okay. When that puppy, which is basically a measure of the U.S. dollar's value against all these other funny fiat currencies out there, when it drops 5% or more in a day, Katie, bar the door. Because that means that everybody's dumping dollars on the market. They're saying, we got to get our hot potato of the U.S. dollar. We don't want it. We want to trade it for anything. And, concurrent to that, that's when you'll see your spikes in gold and silver. Gold moving up $100 a day, literally. Oil moving up $10 a day, literally. Because people are doing what I'm asking you to consider doing right now, and that is getting out of paper and into hard assets. Wheat, corn, sugar, all those things, boom, 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 boom. They will get on a tear. Their charts will look like going parabolic, and they will, because it's people fleeing a dying currency. Happened in Weimar, Germany, happened in Zimbabwe, happened in Argentina, it happened, it's going to happen here too. Okay? So those are some of the warning signs. Okay? Those are just some of them. I'm trying to think right now if there are any more that I'd want to give you, but these are pertinent, and these will be very obvious. They will be in the news. Putting up firewalls, okay? That's the bad news. And I hate to be a bearer of bad news, but we got to deal with reality, right? We do. The good news is you can be out ahead of this. You can be prepared. You can be ready. You can be a light in the darkness. Okay? You can be an island in the sea of chaos. You can. Local communities and states are going to be where this thing's going to be resolved and where your best bet is in putting up your safety nets. Local communities first. For some of us in some of the rural counties, we have some very good sheriffs who understand their authority in times of chaos. And they will not, at least not easily, give their authority over to the federal government when this thing breaks over and there's a bunch of chaos out there. Local sheriffs know their people. They have relationships with the community. They need to be the ones administering and overseeing what's going on in the community when this time comes. Okay? So support your local sheriffs as best you can. I don't know all the dynamics of all the counties, but I seriously doubt that, especially in the larger cities, that you've got much good representation there in terms of them standing up and saying, I won't allow this to happen. It's my jurisdiction. Jurisdictionally, sheriffs are the highest law officer in the land. They're above all the feds. A lot of them don't know that, and a lot of them just willingly give that over to the federal government. But when this time comes, it's going to be important that you have somebody locally there who, if you can have it, it's going to be a plus. Okay? Relationships locally with your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors, folks. Get out in your community. It's going to be a time when you're going to need to know whether that neighbor is going to be an ally or not, an asset or not. You're going to need to know those things ahead of time. And in the midst of chaos or on the verge of chaos is not the time to be doing that. So now is it. And I don't care whether that neighborhood looks like, a few square blocks in the city, or whether that neighborhood is a few square miles in your rural communities. Relationships within your church. Start talking about these things with folks in your church. And I tell you what, it's not easy, but please do it. And just be gentle about it. Be a little bit persistent in laying maybe a headline in front of them. I've spoken at churches before, but not too many. I don't get invited very often because people don't want to hear this. But if you do have an in to say, listen, you've got a small group or whatever, I'd be glad to come talk. This is important. It's just important for people to understand. So, build those communities, and obviously your personal relationship, that's going to carry you through a lot too, as well. Amen? We'll get an amen. I like that. Amen. All right. Now, one of the things that we are working on the state level. There's this thing called the Sound Money Center, and you can go there at soundmoneycenter.org. We are trying as much as we can to help put up firewalls at the state level before this thing goes tilt. And I don't know if we're going to have a whole lot of time. I think we've got maybe through the 2012 legislative session. I don't know that we're going to have a lot longer than that. So we've got a full court press going on right now to bring this issue of what's called sound money to the states through the legislators and through activists. So if you're involved politically, please go over to the table, pick up a card of mine from the Sound Money Center, go to the website, see what's going on, contact me, and I will be glad to come and speak to a local legislator, a Tea Party group, a conservative group, I don't care who it is, about this initiative. Because this is really popping up on the radar nationally because of what happened in Utah. You have what happened in Utah. I told you about that at the top of the program. But it's gaining traction to the point where a lot of other states are saying, maybe we ought to do that too. And what's happening as well, it's gaining traction at the national level. It used to be Ron Paul was the lone voice in the wilderness crying, sound money! The Fed's not doing its job! And so he was just this quack out there. Okay? For literally decades. Now, just about a week ago, you had Senator Jim DeMint, Senator Mike Lee of Utah, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, right? Thank you. They introduced a bill called the Sound Money Promotion Act. Is that right? Promotion? I see you nodding your head a lot, so I know you're into I think it's it. Sound Money Promotion. It starts with a P. Why am I drawing a blank on that? Anyway, Sound Money Promotion Act. Here's what it does. Right now, okay, gold and silver are money. We've kind of established that. Constitutionally, it's money. Article 1, Section 10. Problem is the federal government has taxed it. They've begun taxing it. So they've been taxing it as a collectible. So if you have any kind of gains on it, you pay a 28% collectible tax on it. Either that or you pay capital gains tax on it, one of the two. You don't tax money. Okay, in a real economy, and people understand that. So what they've done with this bill is they've said, listen, at the national level, we're going to remove all taxes from gold and silver, from its purchase, from any gains when it's purchased and sold, any gains, gone, because you don't tax money. Okay, that is a huge thing. It's huge because it legitimizes gold and silver as money again. Okay. And it does it at a national level, and because these three senators have gotten behind it now, it's broadening the scope politically. Beyond just Ron Paul, beyond just the rogue state of Utah, and now you've got people saying, yeah, I think the Fed has gotten out of bounds. Let's talk about what we can do to offer some protection to our citizens and through the states. So they picked this up. Do I think it's going to pass? No. I'd like to say differently, but you're talking about the Senate. The Senate right now is still democratically controlled. The Senate is where the protection for the Federal Reserve lies. Okay, they are the protective arm. These three senators notwithstanding. So I don't think it's going to happen. However, what it has done is it's sent a message to the people, we the people, there's something up that we need to pay attention to. There's something up. And if enough states get involved and enough states put enough pressure on them, we may actually see it happen. Where it's at right now, I would say no. But you get 12 states passing sound money laws and demanding this, and the governors are demanding this, you might actually see it happen. Maybe. Okay, maybe. Hopeful of that. So, within the Sound Money Center, what we're doing and what I'm doing is just traveling around the nation talking to legislators. We're talking about how to craft this legislation to get it through in the 2012 session. So it's a huge initiative of mine that I'm involved with. If you know people in the state of Missouri who are constitutionally minded, conservative, state representatives, state senators, please let me know. I'd get on the phone with them tomorrow and talk to them about this. I just moved to Missouri 3 years ago. I'm not that politically connected. So, I'm sitting here running around the country talking about this in my own backyard. I'm not really taking care of business, but I would like to. We really need that in this state. We really need that. We do need it in the state. Let's see. Implementation. Guess what? People talk about this, and one of the things you hear in the news, the LA Times picked up on this when Utah passed their law. The New York Times picked up on it. Some big papers wrote stories about this whole thing of sound money. And they're ridiculing it, again, because they don't understand it. And they're saying things like, we're going to go around carrying gold and silver coins in our bags again? How are you going to make change for an ounce of gold? All this kind of stuff. And the reality is, you just marry 21st century technology with sound money, and it works. You can take and any of your paper money savings, move that into a deposit. This was happening in Utah. They're moving their money in-state and out-of-state by the hundreds of millions of dollars into these depositories, putting it in physical gold and silver. They have a software mechanism set up in place where they can issue a Visa debit card, and you can back that debit card by your constitutional legal tender known as gold and silver. You go out and swat it. The merchant never knows what's going on. They get paid in fiat money. At the end of the month, you settle up your account. Now, down the future, when the merchant gets smart, they'll be able to turn on a switch and say, I'll take some of that gold. I'll take some of that silver. Or when the money's worthless, they'll be able to just continue to transact business. It is a way to keep the state functioning and the merchants functioning and the economy functioning when the Federal Reserve note currency system goes tilt. Okay? It's huge. It's big stuff. And it can be done. It can be done. It can be implemented. And I happen to work for a company called Mass Metal. We have a program called Silver Saver. And I'm going to plug that a little bit here because, listen, I don't care where you do it. I really don't. I don't care where you purchase or acquire your physical precious metals, but I really highly recommend that you do. Okay? We've got a way to do that that's very simple, and it's a way you can just set up a savings account. Literally, it's a savings account. And it's funded in silver and gold, whatever you choose, and you just say, hey, I want to take $100 a month or $200 or $500 or whatever it is every month, take it out of my fiat checking account, and go buy some gold and silver with it. It's all automatic. Just set it up, set it, forget it, it's done. It helps you accumulate some honest money, some real money, so that you have it. You can take delivery or you can leave it out in a depository where we have it. But this mechanism is also available through payroll deduction. So if you're an employer here and you want to help your employees to accumulate silver and gold bullion, or if you are an employee who says, you know what, I need to take this to my employer and talk to him about how I can maybe do this through payroll deduct to get this done. Well, we've got those mechanisms set up to hopefully get a lot of people very quickly and easily covered by some mechanism or some level of silver and gold. And if you do have the employer or employee issue, Todd, would you stand up? Todd Fletcher is our payroll specialist. See him, and he can help talk you through the process. Here's how we do it. It's very simple. In case you missed him, he's the guy back there. There you go, in the red shirt. So again, I plug that only because, and the Lord has been very, very gracious to me to allow me to work for a company who is in an area that is near and dear to my heart, and that's helping people protect their provision that God gave them as we go through this time. But once again, whether you go down to a local coin shop, whether you go on to another, I don't care. Just please do it. please take a look at doing that, all right? But the implementation issue is a big thing. So those are the kind of things we're working for at the Sound Money Center. If you're interested in having me talk to an activist about this, I mean, if you have a conservative group, if you have a Tea Party group, whatever, they need to know this sound money issue. They need to understand the reason for it. They need to understand how it's implemented, how it works, how it can help the state. Be glad to come and talk, okay? Cards are over on the table there. Just pick one up. Give me a call anytime. So, all right.